Welcome to lesson 2 of the Complete Beginner's Guide to Unreal Engine 5. In the previous lesson, we built a parkour challenge to bring the player to this point. In this lesson, we're going to increase the difficulty by creating moving platforms leading to the next step. In addition to the added difficulty, we will introduce a reward in the form of a checkpoint. When the player reaches the checkpoint, they respawn at the location, so they don't have to start at the beginning. Checkpoints are used in games to reward players for completing difficult tasks. They also allow players to try a difficult sequence over and over without having to waste time traveling to it from the beginning of the level. Let's add a checkpoint to reward the player for getting across the floating islands we added in lesson 1. Press the number 2 to move to the beginning of level 2. In the content browser, navigate through the Hour of Code folder to the Blueprints folder and find the BP_checkpoint asset. Drag one into your scene to the large floating island before the second tunnel. After placing a checkpoint in the world, press the W key to enable the move gizmo. Grab the blue arrow and drag the checkpoint up above the ground. Press the N key on the keyboard to snap the checkpoint down to the first ground surface it finds below the object. Then press the E key to activate the rotation gizmo and place and drag on a blue curve to rotate the checkpoint so that the red arrow is pointed in the direction you want your character to face when they respawn. Position yourself above the platform near the checkpoint you just placed. Make sure you selected the current camera location from the play button drop-down menu. Now play the game to test the checkpoint by walking over it. It should turn blue when it's activated. After activating the checkpoint, jump off the edge of the island. You will respawn at the checkpoint facing the direction the red arrow is pointing. Now walk through the tunnel and ride the moving platform to the end of the tunnel. This introduces a new game mechanic, moving platforms. In order to create moving platforms, we are going to have to learn how to create an animation sequence in Unreal Engine. Hang on tight, we will get to that shortly. As you ride the moving platform that has been provided, you arrive at the edge of the next void we want to cross. Locate the static mesh folder in the content browser by going to Content, Hour of Code and then Static Meshes, and find the SM_floating island static mesh. You add a few of them to get across the void to the next section, but let's start by placing one in the void at the end of the tunnel. Drag the floating island mesh into the world with the newly placed floating island selected, press the W key to use the move gizmo. Click and drag the arrows to place the island in your desired position. After placing the first island, we can save time by quickly duplicating the island to place any other islands needed to reach the next level. We've done this in lesson 1. To duplicate the first island, make sure it is selected with the move gizmo. By holding the Alt key, click and drag on the green arrow of the gizmo to duplicate the island closer to the destination. You will need to let go of the Alt key once you have created the duplicate. Then hold it again to create a new duplicate. Repeat it as many times needed until you have enough islands. Once you have enough islands in place, change their position and test your level to see if you can get across to the next large floating island. Since this is the second level, let's make it a little bit more challenging by giving them a looping animation and make them move around. We will use a feature called Sequencer to create the animations. In the content browser, select the Hour of Code folder and then go to the Sequences folder. Click the right mouse button when hovering over the content browser and navigate to Cinematics and then choose the level sequence. This will create a new level sequence and we are going to rename it to S_moving platforms. A level sequence is a actor for your cinematic scenes. You can make objects do stuff by coding this inside the level sequence editor and trigger this sequence whenever needed. For this level sequence, we are going to make our platforms move. Double-click the S_moving platform sequence to open the sequencer. Let's take a moment to talk about animations. Animation is controlled by using a timeline to manipulate two attributes, which are time and keyframes. We will use keyframes to tell a floating island where it needs to be and at what time it should be there. There is also an order of operations to follow when creating keyframes that will help avoid issues. The order is, first, set the time by moving the playhead in the sequence timeline, and then set the location by moving the object to its target location for that time in the viewport which are our keyframes. Let's animate our floating islands. First, select all your floating islands. You can hold Shift while clicking on actors to add them to your selection. You will see a gold outline on objects that are selected. Then, right-click in the empty gray area on the left side of the sequencer. Choose Actor to Sequencer and then add current selection. To make the animation process easier, click the key icon at the top of the sequencer panel. This will toggle on the Auto Keyframe function, which will create our keyframes automatically as we move our floating islands around in the level. Next, move the playhead to around 15 in the timeline and then select the first floating island. Remember, time first, location second. To create a keyframe, click the Add Keyframe button of the Transform section of your selected floating island. Next, let's change the time, then change the location of the first platform. Set the playhead to frame 45. Move the floating island to another location by dragging the red move gizmo. Make sure the platform will pause in front of where the player can jump onto. This step will move the platform from the starting position at 0015 on the timeline to the destination position set at 0045 on the timeline. The platform will move smoothly between 2 points. We can have the platform remain stationary by setting another keyframe, but not moving the platform. Move the playhead to frame 75. Click the Add Keyframe button in the Transform section. To complete the loop, we will need to copy the original location and paste it at the end of the animation. Select the first keyframe, right-click and choose Copy to save it to the clipboard. Next, move the playhead to frame 105. Right-click the sequence timeline, then choose Paste and then transform that location. If you click and drag the playhead back and forth in the timeline, you will see your floating island move. You can also change the timing of the animation by moving the keyframes left and right in the timeline. By default, the timeline has set the sequence duration to 150 frames. This can be shortened by dragging the red line to the right. Let's shorten the animation to 120 frames. Be sure to save your sequence animation by clicking the Save icon in the sequencer panel, or by choosing Save All from the File menu. Now, you will need to add the sequence to your level. If you don't, the floating island won't animate when you play the game. In the content browser, drag the S_moving platform sequence into the level and place it near the animated floating island. Now let's set the animation to play automatically when the game starts, and also set it to loop. By setting the animation to loop, the animation will repeat as soon as it completes. Select the moving platform actor in the level, and then in the details panel, toggle autoplay to on. Open the loop drop-down menu and choose loop indefinitely. It's time to play test. Play your level and see how the animation you just created moves the platform around your level. Now that you understand how to animate objects using the sequencer, you can animate the rest of your floating islands. We have already added the other islands to the sequence, so you will only need to keyframe them. Remember, time first, location second. Give your players enough time to jump from one platform to the next. 1 second is usually enough, though this will depend on the player. Getting feedback will help ensure your game is enjoyable. The default setting in Unreal is 30 frames per second, so keep the platform stationary for at least 30 frames. To complete this part, add one more checkpoint to reward your players when they make it across all your moving islands. Drag another BP_checkpoint to the large floating island destination and rotate it to face the next floating island. Now let's take a minute to look under the hood of what is happening inside the checkpoint actor. In the content browser, double-click it to open the blueprint editor. Here you can see it has been broken up into 5 different chunks of code. By looking at each section, we can get an understanding of what this blueprint is doing. In simple terms, this blueprint spawns the character at its location after the character dies, but that only scratches the surface. Section 1. When the player crosses the collision sphere, the blueprint activates the Event Begin Overlap node, which starts a chain of events. Section 2. The code checks to see if this checkpoint has been activated before. If it has, the code stops and nothing else happens. If not, then it sets a variable to true. This variable is called a boolean. Section 3. At this stage, the code changes the color of the material on the cylinder to blue. This is so the player knows they have already walked over this checkpoint. This is known as a quality of life feature, making it easier for players to understand what has happened in a game at a glance. Section 4. This section is making a call to the game. Think of it like this. This checkpoint is an actor on the stage, or an actor in your level. It needs to tell the game that the character just walked through it. To do this, it needs to make a call. This is known as casting in code language. Casting is a call equals talking to. So this fourth section is telling the game that the character just walked over the checkpoint. And the game is storing that information. The game then will use that stored information to spawn the character back at this location. Section 5. This last section plays a sound to let the player know that they have activated the checkpoint. That's it for lesson 2. In the next lesson, we will add new challenges that require special powers and introduce collectible items. These powers will allow your players to reach new locations they couldn't before. We'll give them the chance to collect items like coins that entice the player to venture into uncharted territory. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye.